Hello children. So in today's video, let us discuss about chapter 2 biological classification. Before entering into the topic, we shall have a small recap of what we saw in the previous class. So can you answer the question, what is the need for classification? Why do we need classification? Let me give you a scenario. Just imagine you are in a classroom. The classroom is filled with students, but no classification was done, even gender classification, nothing was done, but I want only one particular student to be picked out. So how will I do? Can you answer now? Yes. So you can relate this condition to all plants or animals. If something is grouped without classification, without identification, without nomenclature, what will happen? Will we find it easy to pick? No. So we find it difficult. So you need to understand what is the need for classification. Then what is taxonomical hierarchy? What is taxonomical hierarchy, children? What is hierarchy? Step by step. And what is taxon? Taxon meaning the characters or the criteria that we saw. So what are the different criteria that we saw? It started with species, genus, and finally the largest will be the kingdom. Can you recollect it? And I gave you an example of human. So just recollect it. Okay. Starting with history, classification, taxonomy and definition, two kingdom concept, its limitations, five kingdom concept and its limitations, difficulties of classification. So first let us start with the history of classification. I told you Carolus Linnaeus was the first person to introduce binomial system of nomenclature. So what is binomial system of nomenclature? Bi meaning two, nomial meaning naming. So naming an organism with two names. So what are those two names? Genus and species. And he was considered as the father of taxonomy. But before Carolus Linnaeus, we have few more people who contributed for the classification. Starting from Aristotle. So Aristotle, he categorized organisms into plants and animals. So that start was done by Aristotle. He simply classified into plants and animals. So all the groups were put under plants, either plants or under animals. Then Hippocrates, he listed organisms with medicinal value. So he brought some new idea, like within plants and animals we have picked special characters. So few plants will have certain special characters. Those were listed out. Then Plincy the Elder, he introduced artificial system of classification. So what is the artificial system of classification? Usually when we narrate a story, what will we do? We say once upon a time, like long back or long years ago. What is that long years ago and once upon a time? We start with the history or the evolutionary facts to narrate it, right? But this Plincy the Elder, he introduced artificial system of classification. So what he did was, the classification was not based on evolutionary ideas. So he did not talk about the history. Instead, what did he do? He just brought the current observable conditions. Like if you are growing a plant, he did not talk about the history of plant, how it was. He was just explaining about the observable character like growth of a plant. So classification was done based on growth, height and all those. Okay. So that is why it is called the artificial system of classification. Why? Because classification should be purely based on evolution or previous history. Then John Ray, he introduced the term species. He was the first person to introduce the term species. Then with all these ideas, Carolus Linnaeus, he gave the binomial system of nomenclature. So everything was explained in this publication, Systema Naturae. And he was called the father of taxonomy. Next, coming to taxonomy and definitions. So what do you mean by taxonomy, children? We know that all the categories are called taxon and it is arranged step by step. So taxonomy is a branch of biology deals with identification. So first you need to identify, then you need to name of living organisms and their classification on the basis of their similarities and differences. So how do we classify? Based on the similarity and differences. Now can you bring the scenario of classroom? I told you in a class of in a class of 50, I want only one particular student. So how will I classify? How will I pick that one particular student? I need to say first, maybe based on the gender. If I cannot pick the student based on the gender, I can go with the special characters they have. Maybe first physical characters, or then the mental characters that they produce. So classification, so taxonomy is based on identification, nomenclature and classification based on their similarities and differences. Can you understand now? So coming to the taxonomical hierarchy, so it starts with species, genus, family, order, class, phylum, kingdom. And what is this division? Division meaning, if it is a plant kingdom, we use division instead of phylum. Animal kingdom, we use phylum in phylum. Can you understand? So if it is a plant, if we are talking about plant, we say it as division, and if we are talking about animals, we say it as phylum. Coming to the quiz time. Can you see this quiz, children? You can find a word here called domain. Can you find the word called domain? So what is this domain? We know that the hierarchical system ends with kingdom. But this is a study given by Carl Ors in the year 1990. So he discovered that after kingdom we have another hierarchy called the domain. So that is why it is called the highest rank includes all kingdom. So I told you in the synopsis we have 2 kingdom classification and 5 kingdom classification. After 5 kingdom classification we have another classification saying domain. Okay. So domain will include 3 major categories like bacteria, archaea and eukaryote. So all these 3 are the main domain. So we don't have 5 kingdom anymore. We have only these 3. So within that eukaryote will include all the other 5 kingdom categories. Okay, so just this is an extra additional information that you can know. But according to your textbook, it is given only with kingdom. So you go with your textbooks, but still you can know things. Coming to the question, what is the highest taxonomic rank? So I told you domain, so that can be added. If it is according to your textbook, you can go with kingdom. Okay. Which of the following comes after kingdom? So what comes after kingdom? Phylum. Which rank includes similar species? So what do you mean by similar species, children? Can you say what is similar species? Say for example, tiger, lion, leopard, jaguar, all will have the common genus. What is that? Panthera. Only the species vary. So now tell me which rank includes similar species? The genus. Okay. Which of the following is the correct order of? So try to arrange this order. Which rank is represented by the scientific name Canis? So which is, I gave you an example yesterday. Canis, dog. Very good. So what is that Canis? Genus again. Now coming to 2 organisms belong to the same genus but different species. What does this indicate? What does it indicate? They belong to the same family, they are completely different, they are more closely related than different genera. Then, okay, so the answer will be C. Which taxonomic rank is the most specific? Which taxonomic rank is the most specific? Can you guess which taxonomic rank is the most specific? The species, obviously. Okay. 2 kingdom system of classification. So what is 2 kingdom system of classification, children? So initially the living organisms were classified into either plantae or animalia. So just 2, either plant or animal. So all the living forms should be included either in plant or in animal. Okay. So first we'll start with the two kingdom Plantae, then we'll go with kingdom Animaliae. So kingdom Plantae will include, so what are the living forms included under kingdom Plantae? We have eukaryotic chlorophyll. What is eukaryotic? Eu meaning true and karyote meaning nucleus. So any living forms with well developed nucleus, you call it as eukaryotic. And those organisms producing will have chlorophyll. So they will have chloroplast, which means it can prepare its own food. And they will have prominent cell wall. Do you remember, you would have read in 9th standard the structure of plant cell. So it will have a prominent cell wall containing organism. And what is their storage? How plants store food? In the form of starch. So now you can relate this under plant. Okay. Coming to the next, heterotrophic. So what do you mean by heterotrophic? There are certain plants which cannot prepare its own food and they rely on other for food. Can they come under Plantae? Say for example, insectivorous parasites. Insectivorous plants are partial phototrophs, which means it has chlorophyll, but due to certain lack of nutrients, they totally rely on nitrogen source for their food. So that is why they feed on insects. So can we include this under Plantae? Or certain parasitic plants like Cuscuta? So even this heterotrophic insectivorous parasites are also included under Plantae. Coming to the next, it includes algae, bryophytes, gymnosperms and angiosperms. So all these things we'll read it in detail in the upcoming chapter. Coming to the next, alternation of generation. So what is alternation of generation? It is a biological life cycle where an organism alternate between a multicellular sexual phase and an asexual phase, which means the same organism, it can undergo sexual mode of reproduction as well as asexual mode of reproduction. So it can reproduce through gametes as well as it can reproduce through sperm, through spores. Okay, the organisms, to balance genetic diversity with efficient reproduction, they go for this alternation of generation. Can you understand, children? It can undergo two phases like the gametophytic phase and the sporophytic phase. Gametophytic means sexual reproduction. The organism will reproduce through gametes, whereas sporophytic is the organisms will reproduce through spores. So both are included under kingdom Plantae. Can you find the difficulties now? So we know plant are photosynthetic, plant cannot move, plant can prepare its own food, but you can also find certain characters inside. So now let us see kingdom Animalia. So kingdom Animalia will include heterotrophic eukaryotic organisms. So what do you mean by heterotrophic? They totally rely on other. Eukaryotic meaning it has a prominent cell nucleus, cell structure. Coming to multicellular, obviously we human and animals are multicellular, we lack cell wall. So can you remember our animal cell? Good, we don't have a prominent cell wall. Then how do we store food? In the form of glycogen or fat. Then what is holozoic? We undergo holozoic mode of nutrition, means which includes 5 different steps. What are the 5 different steps? Ingestion, digestion, absorption, assimilation and digestion. Then we respond to sensory and neuromotor mechanisms, so which means our brain and spinal cord plays a major role. Then all the animalia can move. So locomotion meaning we all can move. And what is the mode of reproduction? It involves gametes, which means sexual mode of reproduction, and that results in embryonic development. What is embryonic development? Develops into a fetus. So this is well understood that kingdom Animalia is perfect. Now coming to the limitations. So what are the demerits that you faced? Can you recollect it? Plantae, in Plantae we should have all the characters that are included under plants, but we had certain characters, certain other extra characters that were also included under Plantae. So a large number of organisms did not fall into either category. Then coming to few examples like fungi. So fungi are also included under plantae, but fungi is a heterotroph. They totally rely on other and they don't have chlorophyll. So even that is included under plantae. So that is a disadvantage. Then coming to bacteria. Even bacteria, few bacteria are heterotrophic, which are included under plantae. And we have a thing called protozoan called euglena, which will exhibit different characters. Like some are photosynthetic, it can prepare its own food, they have chlorophyll, and some euglena form, they don't have chlorophyll, they totally rely on other, they act as a parasite, which means they totally take up nutrition from the other. So all these organisms are included under plantae, which are exhibiting different character. Coming to virus, this virus is a predominant, it is found everywhere, but I do not know whether you all know this character of virus. A virus can remain active only when there is a host. When they are found in an environment, they are just considered as a chemical. So we do not know whether virus comes under living form or the non-living form, but it was included under plantae. Can you find the difficulties, children? So these are the limitations where you cannot put all these varieties under plantae. So what are the other criteria to be considered? Is the nature of cell wall, the mode of nutrition, the habitat, method of reproduction, and evolutionary relationships. Can you understand the limitations? You can see this picture, you can find animals, fruits, vegetables, even sweets. So what will happen if you don't have classification? If I cannot animal this one, if I cannot name this one, what will happen? How will I pinpoint this? That's not possible. So it is important to classify based on certain characters and criteria for easy understanding. So just a summarization of two kingdom classification, which includes kingdom plantae and animalia. Kingdom plantae are multicellular. It has a prominent cell wall which is made up of cellulose. It contains chlorophyll. It can prepare its own food, and they generally non-motile. Non-motile meaning locomotion is, it doesn't move. And coming to kingdom animalia, multicellular, cell wall is absent, we don't have chlorophyll, heterotrophic mode of nutrition, generally motile, which means we can move. So in the upcoming video, we shall discuss about 5 kingdom concept and its limitations.